I guess good morning, good afternoon, good evening, because this is the postponed Red Fellas, I guess. But I've titled it Post-Match Khanage, so I'm a bit confused. Pretty much like Liverpool in that last pre-season friendly of the summer. But welcome. Thank you very much for joining us all. Hope you're all keeping very, very well. Hope you're just coming off watching that, or maybe you're still watching the players trot off the pitch. I haven't got the pictures with me right now. Is the game finished, right, lads? Is it officially finished?
Close to being finished.
Close to being finished. There you go. There you go. But yeah, you're all very, very welcome to this post-match carnage, we'll call it. Key moments and takeaways, not the fast food type takeaways, the takeaways from the game. Smash the like on your way in. Like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. There's Conroy. There's Steve. All right, the lads. How you doing, Conroy?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Chris. I've actually had it feels like a Sunday today for me, to be honest, because I was off today, and I know I told you before I was in Edinburgh earlier, and the Fringe is on. I was in Edinburgh for a different reason, but because the Fringe was on, it's like quite a big festival. Like last for
What's
the
that
full month.
about?
So it's like a full month of August, and it's like a lot of comedy shows, music shows. It's really popular. But because we were through there, because my girlfriend had an interview, that we ended up just going to a few comedy shows, and I ended up meeting. I don't know if you've seen the reality show Traitors, the UK one. It was really popular last year. It won a BAFTA, where one of the winners from that is actually a comedian. So I managed to see her. So all in all, it's been a pretty good day, to be honest, Chris. Yeah, so quite a chirpy day. Feels like a Sunday to me, not a Monday. So I'm in quite a good mood.
Good stuff. We love Conroy in a good mood.
Very rare that happens. So enjoy
Very
it.
good to see. Very good to see Conroy in a good mood. Someone who's always usually in a good mood when it comes to Liverpool may not be. Maybe is Steve Plunkett. Steve, how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, not bad. Definitely a Monday for me, mate. Flat out all day. So nice to hear someone's enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
Normality for us while Conroy's away enjoying himself, mate. We have to keep it real, don't we?
Exactly. But it's good to see Conroy happy anyway. T says, "Oh, I could do a bit of chicken curry takeaway." Yeah, I've just actually, fun enough, ordered a chicken biryani. Hopefully that'll be here by the time I finished. So yeah, but there's not one of those takeaways. We're going to talk about the takeaways from the game, lads. Let's get straight into it. Final preseason friendly. Preseason is officially over as of a couple of minutes ago. Conor, what do you make of the preseason? How equipped are we going into Chelsea Sunday away? We're going to get into sort of obviously, the state of the transfer situation, whatever. We may touch upon it, we may not. Well, we will touch upon it. But how are you feeling? Are you excited now that it's over? I know it hasn't been a normal preseason where we played loads and loads of games. It's been quite structured, quite organized. One camp away, and then to Singapore, and then just this is supposed to be the home preseason friendly that we do. It's supposed to be at Anfield, but Anfield's not ready, so we played at Deepdale. How are you feeling?
Okay, Grizz. I feel like, and a lot of the fans, I think, online feel the same, because Chelsea is the first game. It's a big game. Even if you want to look at like Chelsea's form last year, because it's such a firecracker to start the season. I think even more impetus. Not to say that you go to Craven Cottage last season. It's still a big game, but it means that you need to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
So I think with that being in the back of my mind, I think like a lot of us, I feel quite frustrated at the moment, because ultimately, I think there's quite a lot of positives, especially in the attack of this team. I think you can see some of the link-ups very exciting. It's just that it's that defensive mindset or mentality in the midfield. You just feel that we need a bit more security, and that's where I'm at now. I'm just frustrated that deals haven't been done. But if you're asking me on what I'm seeing on the pitch, I think some of the relationships that are forming are very exciting, to be honest. I think it'd be very hard not to be optimistic from that side of things, because attacking-wise, I don't know, because I don't always think preseason you can tell everything from that, but I think it looks quite exciting at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's usually me with the optimism and you with a bit of
I think
pessimism.
it's like it's a balance. Like I think there's positives and negatives. That's the way I see it now. You know, I think there's
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting because I was very. Still, I'll come to you. For the first time in a long time, I was very frustrated with that first half performance. And when I mean first time in a long time, what I meant by that is first time in a long time going into the season. Steve's obviously fixing his camera. Hopefully, I don't know if he can speak at the moment, but he's here. But Conroy, me personally, I was frustrated. Did you use the word frustration as well at some point? Yeah, I was frustrated because I agree with you. You can see patterns of play being built up, relationships, especially in the midfield and attack, being built up.
Yeah.
I just think there's a basic situation of a lack of defensive-minded players on that football pitch.
No, I agree, Grizz. I think the thing is, not to jump the gun on it, but see, like if you're a Barcelona circa 2011, you can get away with maybe a lack of that because you're so good on the ball.
Oh, good on the
But
ball, yeah.
in my opinion, that's how good you have to be to completely not have that destroyer or that presence in the middle of the park. Because
Good point.
ultimately, transition nowadays, Grizz, like even I was thinking about even the Premier League. Like, let's be perfectly honest. Most seasons, there's at least one or two personnel. Every midfield has got legs, and there's always a few players who are pretty, you know, like every team's really got a good player. I'd say the Premier League's that high a standard now that that's where you're at, and you're against midfield who can bully you, and that's why I feel like I agree. I think that's an area of concern, and I think it was your tweet earlier actually, Grizz, about McAllister playing in the sixth role, and if anything, it's like it's annoying that there's not a, let's say for Sunday, that there's not a defensive midfielder who can just sit alongside him or Trent just to allow him that protection for the first game.
Steve, hopefully your issues are all sorted now.
Yeah.
What do you make of it all? How are you feeling going into it all? I'm, as I said, I was a bit frustrated. I calmed down by the time the youngsters came on in the second half, and we're getting to sort of a couple of them that are really lighting up preseason. Have lit up preseason for me. But that first half, even though, as I said, all well and good goals and we're looking good going forward, one of the worst things of last season was how easy we were to play against. I don't see us harder to play against, Steve. I find us, of course, the firepower is more, the variety of attacks is different, but it's still way too easy, Steve. One pass seems to be cutting us open. Is that a structure situation? That's not a DM. DM's not going to do nothing. That's a coaching structural situation, in my opinion.
I would agree. They're not a great side, and that lad ran straight to the middle, obviously over the top, makes a good run. We're always getting hurt by the ball over the top at the moment, the quick transition ball, the ball in between the centre backs. I think we'll give away a lot of chances this season. I think you're right. We'd give away that chance with a 6 in there as well. But I've never really been one to get too hung up on pre-season. Back in the day, Grizz, when we were winning European Cup and leagues every year, we never won a game. We never won a single game. It's all about miles in the legs and building partnerships and trying to, develop a link between Szoboszlai and McAllister, develop a link between Diaz and Gakpo, develop a link between Nunes and Salah. I could go on to continue to develop the link between Verge and Khanage with Trent in that position. What was noticeable today was, because there's not a genuine defensive-minded midfielder in there, I don't like seeing Trent playing with his back to what's going on where he should be looking. Shouldn't be playing facing his own defence. So he's almost playing in the 6 role when he's kind of going in there to try and manipulate the numbers and try and give the opposition something to think about as an offensive player, playing passes through the lines, not necessarily back to his centre-back so he can rebuild and start again. There's a shape issue. There's a tactical issue in there at the moment. I'm not keen on McAllister in the deep line role. He did the double pivot role with Caicedo at times and others at Brighton last season and could do it again. But I replied to that tweet earlier that you put out there saying you'd need to see Trent in there semi-permanently to make that a double pivot, because there really isn't anybody else. And obviously, there's room for criticism because of where we've got to in terms of pre-season and not having the body in to play in that position, and Southampton playing hardball, and the sale of Livramento probably makes that transaction even more difficult, because if they had a financial shortfall to make up, Lavia's not the man to bridge that gap. Livramento's done it, so they're sticking by their guns, what they want. We've been messed around. We've messed around. We should have a 6 in there. We should have a defensive midfielder of a certain type in there right now. And you saw that today. The bite wasn't there. The base of the midfield didn't particularly have anything about it. But I'm not worried because it's pre-season. I think we'll be a slightly different kettle of fish against Chelsea. Maybe not what you want or what I want, but we'll be more competitive.
I hope you're right, Steve. And I'm not one to usually agree with you not usually one to agree with you. I'm like you, where I'm not one to usually talk about preseason in the kind of over emotional way. Either way, whether we smash preseason to bits or whether we struggle, you're right. It's all about legs. It's all about building up relationships, especially if you've got a couple of new players. We have, believe it or not, I know amongst all the hoo-ha, we have got a couple of new players. I agree with you to a certain extent. My only fear, my only worry, my only issue, Steve and Conroy, discussion boys, is on the back of the issues of last season. I wanted us to have I wanted to see a different style of play, possibly, especially in defensive transitions. Now, I absolutely accept that the squad isn't complete. I absolutely accept that there's players missing. And of course, we'd like to think, and pretty much nailed on, there is going to be additions, especially defensive-minded additions, in terms of probably a defender and most definitely a DM. In fact, possibly two. Conroy, does that bode well? Does that give you encouragement? Because look, let's get on to McAllister. I thought McAllister was the shining light. He was a joy to watch, and he's been a joy to watch throughout preseason. You can tell he's an absolute gem of a player. I'm agreeing with Steve. I don't like him in that 6, especially alongside a Trent. You're giving too much. You're giving too much to do to McAllister in terms of winning the ball positional wise, for him to not be able to concentrate on what he's good at, which is progressive passes. So that's why I tweeted him alongside an athletic, an amazing centre back DM would be ideal. That is the crucial part of the rest of the transfer window, isn't it? To make sure we enable that to happen.
Yeah, and I think I actually agree with you both as well. I think the one for me is, in my head, McAllister's can do a job there, and it's a very good job. But primarily, I think in a 8, that's where he can be devastating there as well. And I just feel like you don't want to nullify his ability slightly. That's not fair because he does a brilliant job there. But in my head, I think he can be devastating as a 8. So, but to have the option, say against Chelsea, to play in a 6 with another DM there who can provide that protection as well in a pivot, I think that's an ideal, because that's one of his biggest strengths, his flexibility. He can play different positions. So I think for me, absolutely. But it comes to, again, it's like starting, I would want him in an 8, but I can accept it. But as Steve said, if it was a Trent and a McAllister there, I think you are asking for trouble. Even to be fair to McAllister, I think
your cousin's in the chat, by the way. Sorry, your cousin's in the chat.
That's my burner account. That's what it is. Yeah, I just tweeted it.
Sorry.
But with that, it just feels that, I don't want to say lessons not learned, because we're obviously trying to fill that position, but it's just frustrating because, as I said, teams in this league, they've all got legs in midfield now. Yeah. And if they've not, they've purchased legs. It's not all about athleticism, but in that midfield battle, it's so crucial. And just to your point, Grizz, not to go back on that, but you mentioned transition in the defence and the gaps in behind. I agree with you both. I think usually I don't care about pre-season in that sense. We lost every game or never won a game and won the league a couple of years ago. So it wasn't like nothing's really bothered me about it. I think this season, though, it's like, if you look at Bayern Munich, if you look at today, it seems to be things that keep happening, and it's our first team players who are making these mistakes, and it's not a case of Virgil van Dijk misreading a pass. It's equivalently that high, and again, it's like the way we're operating Trent with Robertson, Konate, and Van Dijk. You've seen that against Bayern Munich, and albeit they probably have offside goals, but again, there's teams who can keep trying that and will get in eventually, and it just. That worries me, because last season Alisson had to make so much more saves than any top keeper should ever have to make one-on-one.
Yeah.
Like, it was ridiculous. Don't get me wrong, he's unbelievable, but I just feel like last season we all agreed that we relied on Alisson far too much, and I just hope that's not the case. But I've got to be honest, guys, from what I've seen, and I've got a note here, and to be fair to the chat, they've said 13, 14, 17, 18 vibes of Liverpool this season, or the start of the season for Liverpool, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. Right now, anyway, I feel like it seems that we've got the attacking, what's the word? Honest attacking choices there to really hurt teams.
Yeah.
But defensively, I think we're going to concede. And I think that Darmstadt had not scored all preseason, or they hadn't won.
Yeah.
And they get in with one early ball. And the only telling thing for me is that was worked on, because they knew that we would try that. That bothers me more. Now yeah, that might not be the case, but you're acting like managers in the Premier League literally do not have 50 analysts working to make sure, in their full squad and coaching staff, to identify the smallest weaknesses in every team. And if that is a glaring one already, that worries me, especially when the first game, Chelsea have been a bit up and down, but they still have got players who can hurt you. So that is a concern, to be honest, Chris.
Yeah, look, Steve, we'll carry on continuing the concerns and the pros and the cons, whatever. I guess very briefly, going into the game, it's good to see our forwards continuing scoring goals. That is for very much a positive of the preseason. I think Salah looks really good. Like, if you can tell, he's really comfortable in his senior. He's always been the senior role, but you know what I mean, in terms of, I've said it before, I think he's got this added responsibility of almost being a playmaker as well as the chief goal scorer. So Bozolai looks like one of the most accurate set piece takers we think we're gonna have. If we thought we had it good with Trent and Robertson, I think we've even upped to level with Szoboszlai's set pieces. What do you make of that? Another one.
I'd agree. Technical footballer with great IQ, and I've always said I like IQ footballers, which is why I place a lot of importance on Gakpo and how good he is. We've added two more in, McAllister and Szoboszlai, and Szoboszlai's got it all, hasn't he? He can play line-breaking passes. He's got a trick, he's got skill, he's quick, he's mobile, he's good with set pieces. Be interesting to see what happens when we get a free kick, because Trent still thinks they're his, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So he might get one, and if he screws it over the top into the crowd, he might not get another one for a while. Listen, it's great to have those options. It's great to have those players around. We don't score enough goals from positions like that, for me. If he scores a free kick from 25 yards, you'd like to think in the same game or the following game, when it opens up for him, he might let fly from a distance himself. In the current squad, only Trent's been trying long distance shots, and sometimes you need them, especially when there's a low block and they're saying to you, you have to go around the width to get anything from us at all. We're better equipped to deal with that now. I think we held back in challenges tonight, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Players will put their bodies on the line a bit more against Chelsea, because last thing you want is to injure yourself in the last pre-season game. So I'm trying to find positives in what was a workout, nothing more. But Szoboszlai, you're absolutely right. Szoboszlai is going to be a special player. He's got a little bit of everything. And he's got swag. He's got confidence in his own ability. And we've lacked that. We've lacked that little bit. You know, the next guy down with a little bit of arrogance and a little bit of housery about him, shall we say, was Andy Robertson, and that's from a defensive point of view. So it's nice to have it at the other end of the pitch with a guy that totally backs himself, and he's got all the attributes to realise that potential for us.
Conroy, you know what I like already about us, and maybe some people will say, "Oh, I've started off a bit negative and full of pessimism. I think rightly so, justified, especially on the back of last season, especially on the lack of transfer activity in recent times, recent weeks, I should say. But again, adding to the positivity side of things, Jota scores again. The pressing looks good. The energy from the forwards and the attacking midfielders looks good. So the absolute definition of gegenpressing is there. And Jota scores again. I think, again, and I know me and you probably agree, I think. I don't know, I can't remember. I think it's nailed on that he starts. And also, well, I want to get your opinion on the shots. I do like the way we're taking far more shots. I know Steve talked about Szoboszlai, Trent had a go. Gakpo, I love the way he has a short backlift and be able to strike the ball. I think it's a massive, massive plus for us, because not always we're going to rely on Salah or Diaz to dribble past and go behind, or a set piece or a corner. Sometimes we're going to have to take shots. I think we've got the players with the ability to take shots now. No disrespect to the ones that have gone. I didn't ever fancy any of them to score from outside the box. Maybe Ox, obviously, but none of the others. Whereas Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gakpo, and Trent now, I think, are all very capable of scoring outside the box.
Absolutely, and I think that's key, because I think it, as Steve mentioned, low blocks as well. It allows you not to be as predictable. So if you're passing side to side, and if you have got people who can actually really hurt you from that distance, it'll allow defences not to offer you so much space, and that can allow gaps in other areas. I think as well, though, it's also about building momentum. I've always found that, especially at Anfield, if maybe someone does fire a shot from long range, keeper saves it, brings a scramble, but it puts a bit of pressure on the opposition, gets the crowd up. I think there's so many positives from that. And I feel like even at Ox is a really good example. When he first came into the team, you think about Man City, the Premier League game, he scores in the 4-3 win, and then the Champions League game, I think just after we made it 1-0. It's like you want someone to when the opportunity is there to go for it, and they've obviously got the ability. So I think that's great. I think Szoboszlai, I think he is just going to go from strength to strength. I just think this guy looks like he's got the platform at Liverpool to really kick on and be a superstar, because I think that's obviously his aim, as Steve mentioned. You need to have a bit of narcissism to get there, of course you do. And I think set piece wise, we mentioned that last season, it's such a big asset, because you can't play well every game and you need to rescue some games. And I think his set piece, that's 2 goals tonight from his set pieces. I think that's a massive for us. I think Trent and Robbo, especially, I'd say both of them actually, it can sometimes be a bit stale if it's not working, even though we do score a lot from them. So I think to have him there can mix up during a game, which is great. I think on the attack, Grizz, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think the attack looks like it's raring to go. The pressing from the front looks very, very sharp, very good. Salah looks, he looks in great condition. And even the second goal, coming from pressing, putting opposition under pressure and finding his mate Jota, who again, as we keep saying it, composed in front of goal. He's looking, that actually looks like it's getting even better. And I know we've said, I think a lot of us said that if the goal against Spurs, you wouldn't want that to fall to anyone else, because he has got that composure and he's calculated. I think, again, he's looking really, really sharp. So attacking wise, it's hard to find much flaws. I mean, I know we're going to speak about Ben Doak as well. I feel like our attack, is humming right now. It's it's harmonious. It's great. That's not the issue, unfortunately.
Football Tifo says, let's get Grizz to 1 million subscribers to help us fund transfers. Absolutely. Let's get me to millions. Let's pass to 1 million subscribers, people. Smash that like button and subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Steve, Gakpo playing in an 8. I remember the wonderful Keith Cross of Redfellas suggesting that he thinks Gakpo could play there quite a bit. I'm not sure if you was one of the guys that scoffed. I wasn't sure. I raised an eyebrow. I was like, oh, interesting shout. But I think he has a point. I think Gakpo Gakpo has got the attributes to play in an 8. I see a lot of, here we go, and I was thinking about this. I'm really concentrating on trying to work out who he reminds me of in terms of playing in that role. Joe Linton of Newcastle. Discuss.
God, I hope not. Really hope not. Everything that Newcastle concede is because players run off Joe Linton, and that was proven against us last season. I think he's overrated, Joe Linton. That's my opinion. I was one of the people who sort of raised an eyebrow at the suggestion that Gakpo could play in an 8, stay in an 8. He's got the ability to do it because he's an intelligent footballer. So intelligence alone will circumnavigate that position and get you through a game. It's not for me. He's at his best further up the pitch, where he can influence play and bring people in because it's such good awareness. We talk of him tasked with the job of letting us learn to forget about Bobby Firmino. Well, I don't think he'll do that from an 8 position. But given the current personnel in the squad, and that there is a possibility we go into the Chelsea game without a 6, without a DM, we'll make steps to change that. But it's not impossible. He may well end up playing in an 8 because McAllister may play in a 6 with Trent joining him more often than not. I just don't think that's best use of his ability. We've taken a guy from left midfield, which was his role fundamentally in the Dutch Football League. Played him through the middle. He's been an absolute revelation in that false 9 role. The Man United game, he was absolutely world class. Much of the talk was about how good Casemiro was. He never got anywhere near him in that game. I think it's a waste of his ability to play him in an 8. But I understand Keith's point, and I accept it, recognise it, and don't necessarily completely disagree with it. I just think Gakpo gives you so much more 20 yards further up the pitch. The idea for me would be that he brings Szoboszlai and McAllister playing in the 8s into the game with his ability to play with his back to goal. He brings Salah, he brings Diaz, and he brings whoever plays up front into the game as well because of his awareness. I just think there's so much more to come from him than being a semi-disciplined 8, a guy that pulls forward when we get forward, but has very, very designated defensive responsibilities and pressing responsibilities. I don't think that's best use of him, to be honest with you. He'll do a job and he'll do a great job. But we bought 2 guys, one from Brighton and one from Leipzig, to play left and right centre midfields. Let's get them in those positions. Let's get that defensive midfielder in. Let's get Trent joining in with a guy that is doing the defensive responsibilities, doing the defensive role. So Trent can look forward and break lines with passes and it laser guarded 50-yard balls. Because at the moment, we're not seeing the best out of Trent. For that reason, we've touched on this before. I don't want to see Gakpo playing the 8 particularly too much, especially when last season Curtis Jones did a very good job in that position as well. What kind of a message are we sending to him?
It's most certainly an option, and the more options you have, the better it is for the team, Conroy. And we've discussed we definitely don't want to see McAllister in the 6 again. Curtis Jones was the 6 in the previous game. Jurgen Klopp alluded to that he had a slight knock. We know we're after number 6s. We know we're after Romeo Lavia. We know we've made bids for him. I'm pretty certain we agree a deal in the next 48 hours with them eventually. But the way it's being played out and drawn out, and not probably, of course, it's from the Southampton side, the leaks. They're making us look like numpties, and this is just the wrong time to make us look like numpties already. We're going through what we're going through. It's a difficult phase in terms of in terms of transfers and organization. From being the most organized, secretive, brilliantly efficiently run club, it's a bit of a shambles right now.
I think what's frustrating, Grizz, is we mentioned the Tchouaméni situation, and what happened there was he was our target. Obviously, what happened, we put the money on the table, we chose Madrid, but that happens. It's life. But the fact it was kind of arrogance of, oh no, but we've not got a plan B, plan C, plan D option, and that's frustrating me with Liverpool at the moment, because a lot of other teams who are operated very well will have, let's say, a list of 4 players, and they'll obviously have the priority list. But once it hits a certain number, the reason they don't spend over the odds is they just move on. That's fine. And with us, again, it feels like we'll put ourselves in the Lavia deal. No, I'm not an expert on exactly what's happening with it, but it'll be the 3rd bid, and if it probably will happen. But again, it feels like there's not enough. Actually, do you know what? We don't rate them any more than that. We're going to move on. But because we've left it so late, we're going to have to do that now. And I think Steve's point about Livramento was actually a really, really good point. I didn't even think about that earlier. Obviously, Newcastle signing Livramento, that's taken a lot of pressure off Southampton selling Ward-Prowse or Lavia. And it's put their hand even higher. So it's very annoying, to be honest, Chris. I think I saw a tweet earlier when someone said, do you know, you have a price or a range, and if it's not going there, have other options. And it's just, and if it is a few million, you'd rather they just spent it and got him in the squad and we could use him upcoming game for Chelsea. It's just, I think it will happen, and it'll be a bit begrudging, is that the right word? It'll be annoying, because it's like, you know, we could have had him in place and he could have been starting on Sunday, but now that's not going to happen, and that just annoys me, because it's meant to be a season, a rebuild, and we might get there. You know, on paper we might get there, but Chelsea away is such a massive game, and this season is going to be so difficult, because you've got, if you like them or not, but Arsenal, like, I'm not going to talk about it based on yesterday, because we won the Community Shield, and what does that tell you? We finished 5th, so don't start that nonsense. But they look like, you know, Arteta has got them playing the way they are. They've got a good, strong young squad. City will just do what they do, and then you've got others who've strengthened. So we want to hit the ground running, and that's why I find it just really annoying, to be honest. I don't know, Chris, do you feel? I know you said at the start, overall it's a feeling of frustration, but this one should have been organised earlier. What do you think?
I'm with you, Conroy, man. It is frustrating. I do believe we should have been more proactive. I do believe we should have been more. Yeah, proactive is the word.
Yeah,
we knew. The thing is, we knew about all the situations, and I absolutely accept and I understand that the Fabinho and Henderson weren't expected slight shocks. And I'll come to Steve. We already knew that the rebuild was in place. We already knew that Fabinho and Henderson, even if the plan was to keep them around, was maximum another season, right, Steve? Surely we would have had contingency plans for next season, targets for next season, to replace Fabinho and Henderson. If the plan, and like reliable journalists are telling us that Lavia was almost an understudy and was also part of the plan anyway, then what about the other targets that Fabinho and Henderson were being looked at? So looking to replace Fabinho and Henderson. What's happened to the list of players that we were going to replace them with next season? There's just not enough being done to bring forward any plans, if there is plans. And I refuse to believe, despite everyone saying we haven't got a plan, I refuse to believe we haven't got a plan.
I think we've been remiss again for a second season. I think we've once again fell into the trap of looking at a player that probably isn't achievable. The moment Kylian Mbappe said he was not going to sign his contract and PSG said we're going to sell him, I genuinely believe we put the brakes on things to see if Tchouaméni would be the guy they used to generate the cash to buy Kylian Mbappe. And I think we sat off and watched that situation. That's going to bite us again potentially for a second season, because I don't see that happening. I've never thought Lavia is a £50 million player. I've sat in many shows with you guys where there's been frustration because we've allowed an 18-year-old to steer our ship from the base of our midfield, yet we're about to pay 50 million and ask a 19-year-old that's played 29 games in the Premier League to do exactly that. So for me, I've been saying on Twitter for weeks now, walk away. Set your figure, like you just said, set your target, put your price out there and walk away. He's going to have 12 months potentially in the Championship to try and steer Southampton back into the Premier League. Next summer, his buyback clause comes alive with Manchester City. 40 million with the buyback as well. So Southampton get about 48 out of it or something like that. If Southampton don't get promoted, City may not activate that clause because he won't have had a great season. So Southampton are playing with fire a little bit here in terms of just to be awkward, just to try to be dogmatic, just to try to channel their inner Daniel Levy and flex their muscles and show us that we don't get our own way. There has to be other targets, you're quite right. But some of the names bandied around, I mean, Calvin Phillips should never be on the lips of a Liverpool fan in terms of a DM. We asked about Højbjerg at Spurs. Well, they don't want him. Their fans don't want him, so why do we? You know, you've got to look at these players. Decore at Crystal Palace, I was coming round to that idea. I was coming round to a double bid for him and Gay at the same time. And then they went and put 50, 60, 70 million pound price tag on his head. So not realistic yet again. It's really, really difficult. I don't know where we're going to find the solution, Sangare might have been an option from the Dutch league again. We don't seem keen on that. Where's it coming from? I'm at a bit of a loss as to where this comes from, and I'm still very reluctant to see the club pay £50 million for a guy that has so little experience in the Premier League. And we spent the noughties buying players that we thought would grow into world-class players. We bought them on the back of, oh, they're going to be this and they're going to be that. And they've got this potential and got that potential. Well, that's what we're doing now. We want to sit at the top table again. We need to be taking players from the top table, not buying for £50 million of your transfer kitty for what might be. That's my only concern with Lavia.
Friend of the channel, friend of the show, Ben Jacobs, apparently has just revealed, and for Diary, thank you very much, says Liverpool have made another improved offer. Southampton rejected their last bid. It's very, very obvious, Conroy, we want this resolved before their next game, apparently, which is tomorrow, a cup game. If he plays in that, he'll be cup tied. We don't want him cup tied for sure. I expect it to be resolved in the next 24, 48 hours, I said. But the way it's being played out, I get Steve's points about he wouldn't like us to pay that, but we're... Do you know that saying?
Beggars can't be choosers, you know.
Beggars can't be choosers. We said that great minds think alike. I don't know why.
I know, that's a one-off.
Yeah, it's a one-off for you, for sure. But we can't... We've got to do it. We have to do it now. We have to bite the bullet and get them in and lower ego, because it's a matter of ego now. We know we've got history with Southampton. They've got, you know, with all the amount of players we bought, they're under a total different regime. So are we. And there's just a bit of, I don't know what you call it. I would say something rude, but we just got to get it done now.
Yeah, I think so. Listen, I completely agree with Steve. I'm in absolute agreement. But I just think, Steve, as Guy said, we've left it, you know, late now, and it's not as if we've you know, put another target to marry up to make their side feel, oh, we might lose the deal. It's just been so much focus on this that I just think we might have to do it. But I agree with Steve's concerns, but I just feel that we have to get it done now. And I think from Southampton's point of view, they're probably thinking, we'll just hold out for 50 million here, because they're going to play on Sunday. If they don't do it by then, they're probably going to panic anyway. We will, because I can't see defensively in the midfield as being great. Even if we do get a result, there'll be issues. So they might even feel we'll get 50 million by next week. And with Livramento, they're just like, from their point of view, their business has been done great. They know what they're doing. Even like the Ward-Prowse one, I think they rejected the offer last week from West Ham. They're quite confident in their ability. They're not Liverpool fans. They don't have to cater to Liverpool's needs. And I think you're right. That's what will end up happening. It will be a case of we paid £50 million for a teenager, but ultimately it could still work out. It could be a great signing. But right now we need something, because there is no way we can go into a season without... Well, we need two. We definitely need one.
I'm not even going to entertain it. You can moan and be the most pessimistic, or you can talk about track record of FSG and Liverpool. There is no way on this great earth we won't be buying a DM before the window closes. Absolutely. So forget about it. You can be the most topmost red or positive, or the bottommost red and negative, whatever. There is no way. So stop discussing that, wasting your time, my time, everyone's energy. We will be buying a DM for sure. We got a super chat from Darius, and he says, the only reason I don't mind Phillips, Højbjerg and Decore links is because I trust Klopp's coaching. Yeah, look, we know that. We know he is the best at sort of polishing diamonds, or players that sort of maybe not going through the best spells in their career, a bit of a stalemate, a bit of a stale point in their careers. I get that. Someone who's just coming through the start of his career, we'll finish up on the second half. Very quick shout out to Harvey Elliott. Every time he's come on, he's done wonders. I really love Harvey Elliott's input every time he's come on the pitch. Attitude-wise, efficiency, effectiveness, energy, everything about him, I really love. And I hope he does really well, because I've got a lot of time for Harvey Elliott. I know we've discussed it to death. Has he got a position in the team? Has he got a role in the team going forward? Time will tell. One guy who absolutely has, fingers crossed, touch wood, prayers, positive thoughts, whoever believes in whatever, Ben Doak. Go on, son. Looks like you have another flying Scotsman to talk about. So it's balanced with the criticism of Robertson in
I
this
know.
position
I know.
with the uprising of Ben Doak.
That's it. That's it. So that's basically what's going to happen this season. You have the credit, the credit in the bank will be for Doak, and then the constant Andy Robertson playing as a left centre back for most of the season, I think. But yeah, this kid is, as I said before, I don't go too much on preseason, but this guy is just, for his age, his impact, his fearlessness, he just looks superb, and I just think he's. You can tell he's even getting more confident. And by the way, I don't mean like an arrogance in the sense of, I feel like he's feeling even more confident of like, right, he's going to beat this man. He's going to go. We said he goes an outside, but I think he's going either side now. He just looks like you're against, fully grown men, and he's not that yet. But he just looks so fearless to just beat them. And I love that because he can offer a tool for us next season. If it's 0-0 in a game, he's going to come on and offer something different. It's not going to be necessarily the first tactics we use, but if we're chasing a game or put Ben on, he's going to beat a man down the line. And as you said last week, a kind of old-fashioned winger. I'm not saying he can only do that, but just to get to the byline and cut it back, I think it's a superb instrument for us to use. I think he's put himself right in it this season. I think he's right in Klopp's thoughts, which says a lot about a guy at that age. And he just, every time, if you even look at like the comments or people watching the game, each game he seems to do better. He seems to look like he's closer to the starting lineup. I know he's not there, but I think he will be in the squad because I just think he offers something different. And that's something, considering that I wouldn't say our attack's been poor at all, especially a front three this pre-season, and people are still talking about him. I think, yeah, the kid really went from strength to strength. And I've got to be honest, I didn't think we'd be talking about him like this so soon. So it just shows you how good he's been doing.
Yeah, he was lightning. He's an absolute firecracker. Steve, anyone else that stood out for you in terms of that second half out of the reserve stroke second team stroke Europa team, whatever you want to call it? Anyone else impressed you?
No, I mean, I think Luis Diaz is getting back to what we know Luis Diaz will do. He's very direct. He's scoring goals. He's creating opportunities. He's involved in a lot, and he's coming in a little bit more central than he did when he first joined. He's doing bits and pieces in the box now, as opposed to going around the outside of a man. But I wanted just to touch on the Ben Doak thing. It's reminiscent of Michael Owen's debut against Wimbledon, when all the Wimbledon players could speak about the dressing room was how direct this kid is. He's absolutely tore into us. He's got no fear. He's lightning quick. He's ultra direct. It's everything a defender doesn't want to play against. Ben Doak's got those facets. He might not be the same finisher as a Michael Owen, but you don't want him facing you up because he's so quick and he's strong. He's really strong, and he came inside onto his left foot today and just overran the ball. His pre-season is all it's missed is a goal like that. I know he scored earlier on in the pre-season, but a goal with a mazy run and a finish gives that boy an absolute lift. He will, as Conroy says, he'll have a part to play in this season. He's in the first team squad now. I don't see him becoming an under 23 again. I think he's played himself into contention for match day squads, and that's really good because it is, as Conroy says, it's another option. It's if anything, it is that direct. It's a quicker transition when he's on the pitch than when Mo Salah is, because Mo Salah will beat a man and sometimes take a bit of time to do it. All Doak does is square you up and roast you, and it's delightful to watch. He's got a massively bright future ahead of him. When the club signed him, the people who were involved in sending him down to Liverpool were saying, "You've got an absolute superstar." All the coaches that worked with him as a kid were saying, "Sky's the limit for this guy. Absolutely, sky's the limit." So, really pleased. And that's a good shout about Quansah, the left centre back. Time will tell. Time will tell, because I can remember a couple of years ago we had big hopes for Billy Cometio, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. So we'll see. But the early signs are promising. So that's another one that deserves a little bit of kudos for his involvement in pre-season. So yeah, he might save us some money in the future, because I don't see us buying a left-sided centre back to put Andy Robbo on the bench. I think if we buy a centre back, it's more to take a little bit of pressure off the other two, because the drop off is huge.
Interesting. I mean, as you said, Jacob sends in a super chat. Thank you very much, sir. He says, what do you think about Kwanzaa doing the left centre back role? Looks composed and can bring the ball out. He does. He does look composed. He does look aggressive as well, which I like in my centre backs. But again, like Steve says, the sample size is way too small. Let's see how it goes. I suspect he's one that's going to be sent out on another loan, possibly a championship loan would be probably good for him. I can't see another Premier League team coming in for him. A championship loan, and then we take it from there. Guys, this has been, I enjoyed it. We've a quick 45-minute show to talk about all things preseason. Lavia, Bendok, Mane have a run. Says obviously we know we need 2-3 more signings. Klopp has pretty much said this, but a fit Thiago is critical if we're going to challenge in the Premier League. Thiago Alcantara. Look at the reaction of all three of us. What to say? What to say? What a player. You know, relying on him is I think at that stage, it's a lottery now.
According to Jack Talbot, he's had a conversation with Sevilla about going back to Spain. It was only his wages that put them off. So that might change. That might change for Thiago.
Yeah, I've heard similar, that the club is open to letting him go. He doesn't want to go. But that's one to keep an eye on. I don't even know what the fans would make of that if we release another midfielder.
That's a full show in itself, Chris.
Absolutely is. And we will discuss it. Many more things to discuss in the coming days. I am going over to the Big Six now. Smash the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. This was Redfellas stroke Post-Match Khanage. We thought we merged the two. Thank you very much for all of your comments and participation. Keep the subscriptions coming. Keep the likes coming. Hopefully we'll be back for some transfer news. As I said, I expect the Lavia bid to be resolved, saga to be resolved. It's just a bit unfortunate the way it's all happened. Apart from that, it's a good night from him, me, and I'll see you in a bit. Take care, guys.